Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke, joined by Ben White. All right, Ben, let's get to it. We're going to get to all your comments. This was a very dispirited performance by the Wildcats. To put it mildly, this was a performance that the best way I can put it is, N'Faly Dante shows up late, or N'Faly Dante goes out of the game early, and you're like, all right, Arizona gets out to this big lead. And then we saw what we've seen so many times this year where the offense stagnates. You start wondering exactly, all right, what's going on? Ben, this was a problem, and really nobody played well. We're going to get into the individual performance here, but this was a bad performance by the Wildcats, period.
Yeah, there's just a lack of urgency, especially there in that second half. I mean, Arizona just could not make a shot all night. I mean, there were too many stretches where you'd go 6 minutes without a field goal, then you would go 4 minutes without a field goal. And to your point, nobody could really get going on both ends of the floor. I thought defensively, they did a good job to start, but that momentum just died down very quickly, and turnover after turnover. I mean, it was a completely different game in that second half. And, it's unfortunate because we've seen it with this team. It's like a roller coaster. You ride the high, you have a really good performance, and then you come back out again in that next game, and it just looked flat all around. And we're at a time of year, Mike, where it's nothing but concerns at this point.
Yeah, it's nothing but concerns. And honestly, this is something that can't happen at this stage. Again, I'm always okay with the team if you lose to a Stanford that's going like we always talk about, 15 of 15 from 3-point range. Cool. It is what it is. But Arizona, you can't go 15 minutes with 3 field goals or whatever the case may be, especially when you're an offense that is totally predicated on outscoring the other team. I mean, that is always going to be their thing. And everybody is just kind of looking around. Now, I will give Lloyd a little bit of credit for benching some players, but then and again, I'm a big Caleb Love fan. You all know that, but he brought him right back in at the end of the game. To me, there's got to be some kind of accountability. And I know this is still going to be a top 2 or 3 seed. So, take it for what it's worth. But this is a problem, though. There are just too many games from this team where they just lay an egg. And this was another one of those performances.
Yeah, I think what was really concerning too is, we've seen players on this roster struggle throughout the season, and I think the one guy, you look at how Arizona plays in good games, you look at Arizona plays in bad games, and the one constant, to a point, all year has been Caleb Love, and I thought he was arguably probably one of the worst, if not the worst starter tonight. He just did not look focused early on. He seemed very disengaged. 2 for 11, just a horrendous shooting night. And, we talked about how important guard play is, especially this time of year. And that sense of urgency just wasn't there from him. And I think it was really disheartening to see, because if Love's not getting you that momentum and giving you that scoring, we're at a point in the year where you certainly know you can't rely on Boswell to do that. Bradley is coming along, but again, he's a bench player. He's not supposed to be the focal point offensively for this team. So, it's funny. We talked about, the USC loss, how you had so many different guys in the starting lineup just completely donut out and have a challenging game. And you thought to yourself, okay, well, Arizona really hasn't had a game like this where just so many guys play bad at once. And, it's kind of the same thing today.
Yeah, and again, it is across the board. Listen, we beat up Kylan Boswell all season. He was far from the only reason here. He was bad. But Caleb Love in this tournament, listen, we're going to give him a lot of credit when he plays well, but Caleb Love in this entire tournament was awful. And there were times, too, when he looked disengaged. And I was really surprised, honestly, when Tommy Lloyd took them out of the game. And I think at that point, when you get some players that are going a little bit of a momentum, a little bit of a, with a Jaden Bradley, with a KJ Lewis, a Pella Larson, I'm riding with that one. I wouldn't have brought Caleb Love back in. And to me, there's a smorgasbord of different options or problems here. But it's going to start with the offense. This was your 22 points shy of your season average, is one of the commenters put.
Yeah,
and you're not going to win any games that way. And Oregon, again, this isn't a team that you should have taken lightly, because, again, it's kind of like USC a couple games ago. Oregon's got good players. This is not something that we talked about before the that they didn't have guys who were capable. They got 2 or 3 guys who would absolutely end up playing at Arizona. This was just an unacceptable performance.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Dante, I mean, nobody at Oregon would play. I mean, you just from an eye test standpoint, even just sitting there by the court, I mean, you look at these guys, there's nobody that scares you from a physicality standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint outside of Dante. And it was just amazing how, Arizona was locked in defensively early, and then it didn't seem to matter in that second half, because I think it was one of those nights where Oregon was just making some crazy outside shots there, especially in that second half. There were a couple of their guards that just couldn't miss, and it seemed like whatever Arizona did, it didn't seem to matter. But I think the thing that's so frustrating, obviously, Arizona played bad defensively there in the second half. They couldn't score, which is really kind of head scratching, because that's been the one thing this team has been able to do all year. But like, if Arizona just makes a couple of field goals during those stretches where there's those dry runs, they win this game. They squeeze out. It's not a big victory by any means, but it's a win. And I think that's the crazy part about it, is when you've got Love, when you've got Boswell, when you've got all these different guys who can do different things for you offensively and score points, you can't find a way to get one of those guys going.
You can't, and that's the thing. Honestly, listen, I mean, at this stage in the game, I think we kind of know where where a guy like Kylan Boswell's head is. It's just not quite there. You can't really. But again, I'm going to keep going back to it. Caleb Love, 7 of 33 the last 3 games. That's just not good enough. We got one of the super snaps coming in as well. Let's see here. What do we got here? Love is 7 of 33 in his last. Needs to find his groove. Yeah, to put it mildly. Also, I want to see a lot more. When you have Jaden Bradley out in the court, and when you have KJ Lewis, there is just a little bit more. I don't care how it has to happen. There is just a little bit more of a toughness factor. There's a little bit more of a desperation factor and a kind of a soothing factor. And even though they didn't have the games they necessarily had before, I'm almost at the point where I think you've got to play them starters minutes, not necessarily start. But again, Umar Ballo, probably the only guy that really brought it today. And I think they should have kept going to Ballo, and they didn't do that.
Yeah, and I think the challenging part is, they keyed in on Ballo there in the second half. And yeah, I mean, he's been the only consistent player throughout this entire tournament. And, Ballo is impactful. He's so critical to what they do from a rebounding perspective and what they do defensively. But at the same time, he's unfortunately, from an impact standpoint, he's not going to be the difference between wins or losses for this team. It's going to be the guards. It's going to be Caleb Love. It's going to be Boswell. And when you don't show up like this, I don't care who you're playing. If you're playing a good team or a bad team, it's just really hard to beat any type of team where you only shoot 38% from the field. And, combined, you probably have about 15 minutes collectively, if not a little bit more, looking at the entire 40 minutes of where you didn't even make a shot.
Yeah, and you also, in a game like this, you got to be able to push that lead. You got to push that lead. And this is where Arizona played with fire pretty much all season. You've got to be able to push that lead from 10 to 15 to 18 to 20 points, because, again, N'Faly Dante, he's a difference maker, obviously. But Arizona, when he came back into the game, it just slowly started matriculating down, going down, to where when it became like a 50-50 game, a lot of times you have confidence they were going to kind of win that game. You didn't really have any confidence in that spot.
No, you didn't. And I think you knew when Oregon was just making shot after shot that just Arizona was done, because offensively there was nothing they could do to get going. And when you have this inconsistency, it's only going to get you so far. I mean, Rudy Martinez makes a great point in the comment. I mean, this game is set by the point guard. I mean, it really is this time of year. So, when you don't have the performance, Bradley and Lewis are critical. Right. And, I get what they bring. I mean, they were a big reason why Arizona was able to kind of, put pedal to the gas yesterday and win as much as they did. But again, that's your bench, right? I mean, you need Boswell to be there. You need Caleb Love to be there. And, I think this is the first really game all year where I've looked at Love and thought to myself, man, he was just disengaged. And I think it's a little bit disheartening to see at this point.
Yeah. And honestly, you're not going to change the lineup. That's not what I'm saying. But I think you have to have a very, very quick hook. Because honestly, we're way past the stage about, feel good, this and that. And I mean, look, certain guys just aren't playing well enough, and there's certain times that it's just not good enough for the Wildcats. And a lot of those players out there, and especially too, and I'm going to go back to this. This isn't a end all be all for everything, but you always hear about, well, is there an NBA player on this team? Whatever the case may be. KJ Lewis is that guy, but he's also a freshman. Keyshawn Johnson's not a primary option. Umar Ballo, I believe they got to go to Umar Ballo even more than they did, not less. That is something that I think you kind of gave up a little bit. Pella really didn't do much in this tournament as well. Again, it's not, I mean, he was far from the biggest problem, but I agree with Ryan Neal here. You got to have a quicker hook than than Tommy Lloyd has. And listen, we've talked about this all season, and it's the point. You're going to be judged come the NCAA tournament. If this team gets bounced in the round of 32, Tommy Lloyd's going to get destroyed. And quite frankly, deservedly so. Now, again, I'm super happy that he's the Arizona coach. Obviously, I think that but Arizona's got to win games. There's no other way to put it. Arizona's got to be able to win games, and if they don't win games, then there's going to be a problem because it starts playing into the narrative a little bit. Is this team soft? Is Tommy Lloyd not necessarily somebody that brings out the emotion in his players? There's going to be those questions, Ben.
Yeah. And I think it'll be, really interesting to see just how it shapes out from a seeding perspective. And I know that, the players aren't necessarily thinking about that, but you probably had that 2 seed and you just don't want to be raising your eyebrows or even putting yourself in that position this time of year where you're questioning, okay, where's Arizona going to be? Because, 2 weeks ago, we're having a completely different conversation. And, we've talked a lot about how this team is just high and low and how it's maybe a good thing that they lose early. But, I would argue, Mike, we can't do that this time of year. You got to play 6 straight games, to win it all. You got to play 5 straight really, really well, just to even get to the Final Four and really just to get out of the first weekend. And, you can't control the matchup. You can't control the type of team you're going to play. And, your game in transition and, the easy buckets and the fast momentum on offense, that's all well and good. But, come March, it's really hard to play that way. I mean, you have to beat teams with physicality. You have to beat teams with guard play. And more importantly, you have to beat teams by making shots. And they just couldn't do that.
Yeah. And like I say, I know I don't want Sean Miller back. We didn't win a tournament game in his last 5 years. I don't want Sean Miller back with all due respect. Listen, this is also going to be something where, Arizona seems almost allergic to success this season. When you think that Arizona is about to get to that point where we're like, all right, you got over the hump, you got to figure it out. Like when they were number 1 in the country, I think we thought Arizona's going to be in the top 5 all season long. Well, didn't happen. And then you start, all right, well, as Arizona starts inching towards that number 1 seed, then you start getting bad losses. You get the bad loss to Stanford. You lose to Oregon State. You get pushed around by USC. And that's kind of the mantra in all of these games that you just kind of get pushed around, Ben. And that, to me, that's just the part that's unacceptable.
Yeah, and physicality is everything come the NCAA tournament time. And, this team has shown it years where, throughout the year where they're just really physical. And I think they match up really well because you have a number of different guys who are versatile and can do a lot of different things. It's not like the team at all last year. And, you have to wonder, how is that going to carry, going into next week? Because, this is the time of year where you can't mess around. I mean, this is the first time, that Arizona has lost in the Pac-12 tournament since 2019. So this is something that we're accustomed to seeing them coast through, them look good and get ready for March. And, that's the negative thing, right? I mean, the negative thing is today was a donut. Offensively, they couldn't shoot. They couldn't get anything going. The free throw percentage is not pretty at all by any means, 64%. They couldn't make a shot to take those easy points at the line. And again, we talk about, they're a couple of shots away from just squeezing out a win. Well, the same applies to free throws. And, I think you're learning that when you play this bad collectively, just the margin for error isn't there. I don't care if you're playing Oregon. I don't care if you're playing Washington State, one of the better teams, if not the best team in the Pac-12 outside of Arizona. So I don't really know what more to say other than you can't have a performance like this time of year. And, is it going to matter in the grand scheme of things, from a seeding perspective and who they play and where they play in March? Probably not. But you still worry about that effort, that energy, and how they're going to carry themselves next week because, you got to flip that switch and you got to forget about this game very, very quickly.
All right, now let's go to the Desert Financial Credit Union. By the numbers, this isn't going to be pretty. All right, look at this. 38%, 5-19. Here's the other thing that I think is frustrating, Ben, is that Oregon didn't even play that well.
No.
It wasn't like like I said, it wasn't like Oregon was shooting the lights out. It doesn't like, it didn't look like, Oregon was doing any of that. And that, again, is the issue, man, is that they just didn't play well. We have Tony Gimino entering the equation as well. But, yeah, here's your Desert Financial Credit Union by the numbers. Also, You do you with Desert Financial Credit Union, the official credit union of PHNX Sports. Very good stuff. We got Anthony Gimino in here. Anthony, you're just coming back from the presser. What do you got for us, AG?
Well, I wasn't in the presser, but I went to the locker room, the very quiet locker room.
Right, yeah.
And it was probably exactly what you would expect.
Right.
I mean, what are they going to say?
Right.
We're going to, we'll take it. We'll try to move past it, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to Caleb, talk to Keyshawn, who's always got positive energy.
Right. Anthony, just looking at the screen.
Yeah. You kind of like that from
I've been doing that all week. Right.
I'd rather look at the screen than you. Right?
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I mean, there's really not a lot to say.
Right.
They played poorly, and it's just another example of whenever you think this team is ready to really go,
right,
they don't.
Right.
And the strange thing is you would expect it to be, you wouldn't expect it to be offense.
Right.
But now that's 2 of the last 3 games is their lowest point total of the season.
Yeah, well, let's ask. A lot of people are asking about Tommy Lloyd and Gila River Resorts and Casinos. They're also asking about that, Anthony Gimino. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. A fun, immersive experience. Be like Ben One White. You'd be able to see the cool little blue waves. I'm sure Anthony Gimino's hung out there as well. All kinds of really good stuff at the Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Tommy Lloyd, listen, I was not a huge fan of Sean Miller's antics. But the one thing about it, though, is that his teams generally were tough. I'm just going to ask you this question. Is this team tough?
I thought they were getting there.
Yeah.
And that's what I wrote after the first game of the tournament against USC.
Right.
That was a Sean Miller nastiness is required effort.
Right.
And we saw that very same thing in the first half defensively.
Right.
And then, so Arizona came here, they played 3 really good halves of defense.
Mm-hmm.
And then second half, it all went away.
Right.
And the offense was never really in sync. What's going on with Caleb Love right now?
Right.
And he says he's getting a lot of attention from opposing defenses, but the answer to that is
that great players get that. Guess what? That to me is not an excuse.
So the answer is you start looking for you start moving without the ball better. You start looking for your teammates more, but you don't necessarily, we know he has a propensity to jack up a 3-pointer in the first several seconds of the shot clock.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And were you surprised?
Even when he's shooting like 2 of 11.
Were you surprised? Honestly, first of all, I was happy. And again, I'm a big Caleb Love fan. But were you surprised, Anthony, when Arizona makes that run, kind of at the mini run at the end of the game, without Caleb and Boswell in there? And then he brings Caleb Love back into the game. Were you a little surprised by that?
No, Caleb Love is your guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're going to ride and die with Caleb Love. You are not going to ride and die with Kylan Boswell.
Correct.
That's a whole different thing.
Right.
And everybody saw it. Kylan Boswell was not in the game late.
Right.
And there was really good reasons for that.
Let's talk about Kylan Boswell. I mean, this is one, again, I want to be careful here. I don't want to, because again, he's 18 and get all that. But man, he's just not been good this year. I mean, sure, he's had some moments, but again, you at Arizona, it's point guard under Lute Olson. You know what it looks like. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but there's no way you can go into next season with him as your guaranteed starter. I think that thing's got to be totally opened up. I like it when Jade Bradley's out there at the court a lot more. I think he's more of a calming influence. For all the crap he gets about how he can't score, this and that, he generally is a better scorer than Kylan Boswell. Defensively, he's much better. Boswell is just this. I mean, let's just be honest here. Boswell this season has been a massive liability overall.
Well, I mean, he was really good for the first month?
Yeah. Cool.
He was.
Right.
Since then, not so much, or certainly hit and miss.
Right.
And you've talked about it. We've all talked about it a lot. He sure doesn't look confident out there. And one thing I tweeted during the game is I think he's okay when he's the distributor point guard. What I really hate is for him to come down, shoot the 3-pointer early in the shot clock without getting Arizona into his offense.
Right.
If he gets Arizona into his offense, make a pass, the ball comes back to him, and then he shoots, that's fine. That's part of the offense. That's what he's supposed to do. But if he doesn't even give Arizona a chance to get into his offense, that's what's that's what's been a problem for Arizona.
Yeah,
and for him.
And again, and you can generally see it too. That's the thing. And I just kind of wonder for, what was the mentality going into this year, that it was just going to be kind of, and again, I'm not even, dissing him necessarily, but this will be a fun 1 year pit or 2 year pit stop. And then I'm off to the end, almost at the NFL. Then I'm off to the NBA. I don't know what it is, but again, you can't really come out of this, I think, with, this season with anything but massive question marks about what the future for Kylan Boswell is.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The next 2 weeks or so.
Right.
You hope it's 2 weeks. You hope to get to the second weekend.
Right.
But he got so much attention and praise early. Then he started showing up on the NBA draft boards and all the mock drafts.
Right.
Not everybody handles that well.
Right.
I'm not saying he didn't, but I think it's one of those things where every day, and if you're head coach Tommy Lloyd, every day you got to be dealing with something that the chemistry at that moment is going to change.
Right.
Because people are talking in your ear, you're looking at this, you're paying attention to the wrong things. And sometimes that, not every player handles that the very best way.
All right.
But
go ahead.
Now that we're into the, I'm not an advocate for taking Boswell out of the starting line.
No, I'm not either.
But now you're in the tournament, and like we saw today, if Boswell's not playing well, then you ride with Bradley.
Because Bradley, again, you generally know.
You don't have to play any more games with, we got to keep him prepared for later in the season.
Right.
It's late in the season. And if he has to sit on the bench for 15 minutes in the second half, he sits on the bench.
This isn't, the term, this isn't a participation thing. I'm going to take a little bit of umbrage here with what Lyle says. Imagine if these guys wrapped on Love like they did Boswell. Well, one of these is not the same. One of these guys was the Pac-12 Player of the Year, and the other guy was generally a massive liability. So let's not. One of these two is not the same.
Yeah.
I mean,
one was the Pac-12 Player of the Year.
I don't know what to tell you, buddy.
But we did mention that he's been off his game for the last 3 games.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that also kind of is what it is.
So who do you trust?
I trust Jaden Bradley, and you know what?
I'm going back to Love and Boswell. Right.
Yeah. I mean, right. You're going to go with it. Yeah. I also like, I think with a guy like Keyshawn Johnson, we're at this point, and I've said this entire year, that with Keyshawn Johnson, you've got to, he's got to be impactful. Again, I don't need 20 and 10.
Yeah.
That's not really his game. Totally get all of that. Not his game. But I need 11 and 9 out of him. I need him to be impactful. I keep thinking back to that Washington game where he was blocking shots. Can I see that, by the way? Thanks, Anthony.
8 and 3, by the way.
Yeah, 8 and 3. And I need that. I need him. You need to know that Keyshawn Johnson is out there. There's another game where it didn't really feel like you knew that Keyshawn Johnson was out there.
Yeah. Well, looking at the comment from AZ Future Coach, 100%.
Yep.
And that's always been Arizona's problem. And it's been Arizona's problem in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
And that's what this team will have to deal with. They'll have to deal with a team who's going to zone, slow it down, grind it out. And Arizona's been pretty good with their half-court offense, but they're not going to score 90 points in that kind of game in the NCAA tournament. So they got to win. They got to find a way to win when they score 70.
Do you think that how would you? Let me ask you this, Anthony. As far as making adjustments, that was generally something that Sean Miller generally didn't make adjustments. Lute Olson was very, very good generally at making adjustments. Where are we with Tommy Lloyd on making adjustments? Does he make it, like, if his team isn't playing well, does he know the right buttons to press to be able to get them back, or what exactly? Where would you put that? Right now?
Most of the comments I hear are that he doesn't properly motivate the team, because I don't think the TV cameras were always focused on Sean Miller, because they knew Sean Miller was good theater and that he was going to be yelling. His face was going to be red. He was going to be sweating through his shirt.
Right.
Tommy's got the laid back vibe, but I think, and because you've been to more games, the TV cameras don't always pick up his emotion or intensity. But sure, he's way more laid back than Sean. In terms of adjustments, I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because it does feel, and again, I'm a big I'm a big Tommy Lloyd fan, but it does feel a lot of times if that team isn't playing well, it doesn't feel like he necessarily knows, is there another button to press? Is there a way to really kind of get under these guys? And it doesn't feel like it's there. Again, we're early in it, but if things are kind of teetering, or like this Oregon game is a perfect example, and the offense just basically went dead. And you could say, well, Tommy Lloyd can't make those shots. I totally get all of that, but as a coach, it's also your job to try to get the best out of your players. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know exactly where I stand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just an amateur when it comes to this.
Right.
I'm during the game, especially during the game, you're in person during the game, and you're trying to write, and you're trying to do social media, you're trying to do all these things. I mean, for sure, it's like Bala was so great early in the game. I think it's really easy to say, why did they stop going to Bala?
Right.
But again, that's very surfacey. You need like Kyle Dodd in here to break that down.
Yeah, you need a Kyle Dodd spark in here. All right, now, you know what else you might need, Anthony, is OGs. All right, all kinds of really good stuff with OGs. You got the fruits, you got the creams, you got basically everything that you need with OGs. Again, you will thank me later. Go out and get some OGs. You're probably going to need it after this game. I'll put it to you like that. And BetMGM, here's the deal. BetMGM, a sportsbook app. All kinds of really, really good stuff. Sign up for BetMGM. Use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app for at least $5, and you can receive free money in plays if you win. Check out the show notes for details, and let's hear from Damon with the disclaimer.
Problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-UP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117. For confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Okay, now let's the NCAA tournament. Obviously, we got Selection Sunday coming here, and again, TLN, big grand scheme of things, you're right. Honestly, who cares about this game like it sucks? But this at this point, all people really care about is Final Fours. Nobody will remember this game if Arizona makes a run. Yes, totally agree with all of that. Nobody cares. That listen, I know we're kind of spoiled at Arizona, but nobody really cares I think at this stage about a regular season championship. People in this city, and deservedly so, want a Final Four, and that's going to be if this team makes the Elite Eight, I think that Arizona will be, the monkey's off Tommy Lloyd's back for a while. I mean, obviously want to get to a Final Four, but if this team loses in the round of 32 to like a TCU or a Texas Tech, there's going to be some massive questions that are going to start being asked about just how tough is this kind of wilting down the stretch.
Yeah. I mean, this is his best team. Mm-hmm. This is his toughest team. This is his team that's better prepared to make a deep March run. Doesn't mean they will.
Right.
And yeah, I'm with you. I mean, they got to get to, I don't think the Sweet 16 is going to be enough to make fans happy.
Right. I agree with that.
Even though if you get in a Sweet 16 game and you're playing a 3 seed.
Yeah.
You end up, you're already at that level. You end up being a toss up.
Right.
But I think Elite Eight is the baseline. Mm-hmm. And then after that, if you happen to play well, you go to the Final Four, you get a little bit lucky, great.
Right. Now, again, I think people, let's not be a Texas, I don't know about that. You got to remember that.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And you got to remember, too, this is still a team that,
Well, everybody wants to make predictions based off the last game.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Tennessee
Tennessee just lost by 16 or whatever it was.
19 points to Mississippi State. Right.
None of it matters. Mm-hmm. None of it has ever mattered.
Right. And honestly, there should be a lot of desperation with this team going into the tournament as well, because keep in mind, I mean, assuming all these guys move on, there's going to be Caleb Love's last dance, part of the pun. This is going to be Umar's. This is going to be Pella Larson's. They're definitely going to be Keyshawn's. So there's really no excuses at this point, Anthony.
I know, and you've got a couple guys on the team who have been there, done that. Mm-hmm. And whether Caleb Love's experience of getting the championship game, whether Keyshawn Johnson's experience of getting the championship game, whatever it takes, they know that mental part of it to get there. Mm-hmm. They're through this. For whatever reason, they and their team have been able to play their best in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
If that happens to Arizona, they can get to the Final Four because despite what happened tonight, they're still the same team.
Yeah.
If they, like to not be worried about the offense, I'm a little worried about the offense just based on what we saw, because the point guard play isn't like Arizona's other point guard play when the Cats got to the Final Four.
Right.
You look at those teams.
Those all had dominant point guards.
Absolutely. This team doesn't have that.
Right.
You look at the 3-point shooting. Comes and goes, right? Especially when Caleb Love isn't hitting.
Right.
And those are two things you got to have. You got to have point guard play. You got to have 3-point shooting from your backcourt.
Right. I also think.
And so, again, it just comes and goes, and you don't know if they can do it for 4, 5, 6 in a row.
We said this before it came on, or before you got in here, Anthony. I think the thing that's also a little disconcerting about this game is that Oregon didn't even play well. It wasn't like you came away from this game thinking that Oregon was awesome.
I mean, they were horrible for at least 15 minutes.
Right, exactly. I mean,
and when there was a chance, they're up 14, and you swore they should have been up by 20 at halftime.
Right. Oregon was 7 of 23 from 7 of 23. They shot 25-59. Yeah. So it's not like
Oregon. They were making some tough shots in the second half.
They made some tough shots for sure, but sooner or later that's going to cut. You're going to come back to.
And that's the other the other thing with Arizona. Teams get crazy from the 3-point line.
Right. Exactly.
And Arizona doesn't defend the 3-point line very well.
And I don't think that Arizona really. I think at this stage, I think it's probably fair to say that Arizona doesn't care about defending the 3-point line. Oh, guess who's in here now? Jason Scheer, pull up a headset, my friend.
We're just going
we got another
jump him in, or do you want this one?
No, you stay in here, man. Stay in here, man. Again,
I was hoping I could leave.
Yes. Damn. We are coming to you live from the BetMGM prison cell. All right. Yes. The T-Mobile Arena. Excuse me.
So should we take a vote? Does everybody want Scheer on camera?
I don't need my face on air. We're good.
All right. Well, either way, you're on. You're on. You get. All right. Scheer, here's where we're at. Again, the big thing that I take away from this game is that Oregon again didn't even play well. They wanted it more than Arizona. Also, at this stage though, it's NCAA tournament's here, man. This is how you're going to be judged. And this is honestly, nobody would care about this game if Arizona won by 35 points and they lost in the second round at TCU. That's just the way it is. That's going to be the way it is here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I should be significantly more upset about this loss probably, but I'm really not. Like, someone asked me on the message board, I'm like, no, tournament bracket is released on Sunday. Who cares? It's just, it doesn't do anything for you at the end of the day. It would have been cool to win the tournament and all that, but I mean, there's some concern. I think the big concern is, Dana Altman basically said that when shots didn't go in, Arizona kind of the energy went away. And Tommy said they got way too stagnant on offense and they couldn't rebound because of it. And in March, those are two things that just should not happen. So, yeah, there's concerns, but the overall result, it won't matter in 3 days?
Right. Now, listen, AZ Fuge says Arizona offense struggles are placated or not on poor zone or offensive player and ball movement. There is a time, I'll say this, there is a time that when Arizona bogs down offensively, everybody just kind of stands around at times, where I think in the first couple years, it was very much of a free flow and the ball's moving, players cutting, guys getting open. There's not, when Arizona struggles, guys standing around.
This game, Arizona's offense it's good, but it's also easy to figure out, right? If the guards don't play well, it's not a good offense. That's it. And when the guards are moving and they're in the lane and they're cutting and all that, it is a very good offense. And I just asked Jada Bradley, I said, are you the assumption that every single team you face is just going to play zone? He said, yeah, because they're struggling with it. Their zone offense has not been good. Teams are basically getting in the lane, sitting around the basket, daring Arizona to shoot threes, and it's not really that good of a three-point shooting team. You got to be able to get an open jumper here and there from Jaden or Boswell. And when Caleb Love isn't extending the court with his shooting, Arizona's just the offense is completely different.
I mean, Arizona's zone offense hasn't been good for 35 years. That's how you. That's how you beat Arizona.
Right. All right. Now, Scheer, we talked about a little bit before. I was happy. I was happy that Tommy Lloyd took Caleb Love and Kylan Boswell out there at the end. Obviously, brought Caleb Love back in. Where are we at with Boswell now? Because this is atrocious, Boswell. We were talking about it last night with some drinks with Tony Gimino, by the way. And it's bad, man. I mean, he's a real negative out there right now.
I don't have it in front of me. What did he shoot? I think he made
What was he?
Pull up the box score here. We're professional. We have a printed out box score.
Exactly.
1 of 6.
Yeah.
And yesterday he was 1 of 8. So he's 2 of his last 14 from your point guard. And I've said this before, when Jaden Bradley, and I don't want to say he didn't play well, but he's not, there's games where he's really good on offense and there's games where he's average and all that. But if Boswell's going to go 2 of 14 in games like this, like there should be, he played 28 minutes. You can't play him 28 minutes on Thursday. Right. You can't do it. If he's 1 for 6 and turning the ball over, he's done. You can't afford to play through it. I get why Tommy played him today. You need him. But that has officially ended with this loss. If he doesn't play well, you got to pull him.
Because this is also, again, this isn't about participation awards and stuff at this stage. This is about winning basketball games. And honestly, under Lloyd, and again, I know everybody's beating up Tommy Lloyd. I'll still take Tommy Lloyd every day of the week. I'm happy that Tommy Lloyd's the coach. You certainly got to learn some things. Obviously, I get all of that. But you've got to, this is about winning now. If you have 2 or 3 minutes where he's going out there and he's missing easy shots or he's turning the ball over, there's got to be a quick hook, because it's also not like last year. Like last year, I think you could make the same case, and this is where I was a little bit concerned, is that Kirk Kriisa, when he's going 2 of 9,000 from the field in the tournament, there was never a thought by Tommy Lloyd to ever pull him. Now, Boswell actually was better last year. Maybe be that for what is, but you got to see something different here, because we got to be honest here again. Arizona's had 4 NCAA tournament games under Tommy Lloyd, and they've looked. Let's just be honest here. In 7 out of the 8 halves, they've looked like crap. There's no other way. I mean, even Wright State game, obviously TCU, Houston was awful. Princeton, 7 out of 8 halves. I don't even care about necessarily the record. It's how they look. And guys, they've looked terrible in those 4 NCAA tournament games.
Yeah, I mean, that's look, and we've said this before, Mike. I don't care who Arizona plays next week; they have to get out of the first weekend. I don't care if it's some underseeded 10 or 7 or whatever it is. I don't care. They have to get out of the first weekend. Tommy has to get out of the first weekend, and it's easier to say, "Oh, you play zone, you beat Arizona," right? Like there has to be more than that. And it was an energy thing a little bit in the second half. And at first, I think oftentimes people confuse energy with efficiency. But when Dana Allman says, "Look, like they weren't making shots," and you could feel them deflate, that shouldn't be a team issue. That's been an issue for Boswell all year. But like Caleb Love was pouting a little bit, and it almost looked like his confidence wasn't there, which is wild from him, because we know he'll put up any shot he can.
Right.
They need that swagger back. And I said this in the second half. Oregon was talking crap, was running up and down the court, was yelling, was clapping. That was Arizona against USC the other night. Arizona looked like USC the other night tonight, where they just no energy, no enthusiasm. They looked like we're getting beat, and let's go home. And that was that.
Yeah, that's 2 games out of the last 3. Arizona took a punch and went down.
Right. I always love these comments. I lived this. Anthony lived this. Scheer didn't live it, but Scheer knows about it, certainly.
I hate him. I hate these comments. No offense.
There is a massive difference here. First of all, Lute Olson went to a Final Four at Iowa. He took over probably the worst program in the entire world at Arizona in that point. He got you to the Final Four in 88. He got you there in 94. Yes, they're between East Tennessee State, Santa Clara. There were some very upsetting, but guess what? Lute Olson has some very high highs in there as well.
Okay, so what's the point here?
I don't get it.
Well, there's also one thing on that 97 team that ends this conversation. Compare that backcourt to like.
Right.
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier.
Like, you need guards to win in the NCAA tournament most of the time. That backcourt, they're like that's what do you come on?
Right. Yeah. And again, I always say this too. Like that is probably the. It doesn't get any better. I was talking about this with AJ Bramlett a while back. I believe you could make a case that's probably the best perimeter in all college basketball history. It's that good. So yes. Now moving forward, then I don't care about matchups at this point. Now again, I'm not going to lie to you and pretend that we're not going to break down Bracketology live on Sunday. Very excited about that, obviously. But to me, guys, I'm at the stage. This is far more about Arizona and what they bring than who they go against, because if they bring efforts like they brought here or they brought against USC, then they're going to lose no matter who they're playing. And if they bring efforts like we've seen when they're really focused, they are going to be really good as well, period.
So, I mean, the floor is a lot lower than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that is very true.
That's the only problem with it. I think the ceiling is still as high.
Right.
If they play like they did against USC, yeah, they could get to they can beat anybody and play with anybody.
Mhm.
But now you start wondering, they could lose in the in the round of 32.
It becomes very of sheer.
A game like this with a bad matchup.
I was going to say, like, a few weeks ago, had you asked me if Arizona could lose in the first round, I would have told you there's no chance whatsoever. Now,
Well, Tommy never loses back-to-back games, so they're guaranteed to be the 15 seed this year.
But there's still that part that's creeping in your mind where now all of a sudden you're like, man, if they don't bring the energy against a St. John's or someone who thrives off energy or seats, like, they'll lose that game. They will absolutely lose in that second round.
Right. Yes. Now, real quick, one thing that you don't need to worry about is the Arizona lottery, my friends. Anthony Gimino, you've told me that you've won the Arizona lottery multiple times. This is true.
Oh, sure. I've won a lot of $2 scratchers.
That is why you were hanging out
That's
with
why
me.
Do I look like someone who's won the lottery, Mike?
Well, I don't know. The beard looks very, very good. Oh, that's very funny. Ben Lindsay would be proud of the second half. That's very funny. But again, go to azlotto.com. Check it out. Just like Jason Scheer and Anthony Gimino, they are about giving back to the people. And Arizona Lottery wants you to help it out. And some burros, all kinds of good stuff. We're going to be heading back tomorrow. What time are you guys leaving tomorrow, Anthony?
I don't know yet.
All right. Well, we're leaving tomorrow.
I'm ready to leave now.
You're out?
Yeah,
You're out.
Me, I'm ready to go now.
We're leaving tomorrow, but some burros, my friends. Some burros will be something that we will probably stop by in Phoenix. Check it out. All kinds of really good stuff. Someburros.com. Just a totally off topic thing just for a second about this game. How is Oregon not better this year? I mean,
this is our fault, Mike, because we went on 2 pregame things and we're like, Oregon should be a lot better. They're loaded. And now this is what you get. This is that second half is what Oregon should look like. Shellstad is a monster. Mm-hmm. And when he gets going like that, they're really, really good.
And Folly Dante is really, really good.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Kusnar, by the way, one thing I am going to make fun of, any 26-year-old that keeps going up against 18-year-olds and complaining to the official every time he thinks that he gets fouled, dude, you're 26 years old, play through it. He's actually 26. So again, shoo with that argument. Now, this is going to be fascinating though, going into the Big 12 next year. Because you're going to have you're going to be going against a lot of teams on a game-by-game basis. I'm excited for it, but there's also going to be a lot of losses along the way. And games that if you don't bring it, you're going to lose and you could get embarrassed. That's one of the things that didn't necessarily happen this year with Arizona is they lost to crappy teams, but those teams just didn't have the talent to embarrass Arizona. If you have if you go against really good teams in the Big 12, you could, and you don't bring it, you could end up losing by 25 to 30 points.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this up 7 to 8 months before we have to deal with it.
But, that's what I want.
Can we get through the NCAAs first?
Yeah, no, I just want to bring it up. Yeah, look at Anthony Gimino getting really
a little feisty.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, seriously, get some drinks in this guy last night, and all he wants to do is start fights. All right, but as far as Scheer, you keep an eye on this. Scheer, you run a bracketology where you essentially copy the best people's brackets, and then you put it out as your own. This is correct, Jason Scheer.
No, that's not what I do. Dude, Cody and I we entered the bracket matrix one year. We used to do it from like the beginning of the year.
Right. How is
we were like 14th place or something like that.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm not going to ask you this question.
Arizona's a 2 seed in the West, and it's going to Salt Lake. I would be absolutely shocked if it drops to a 3. I know the end of the world. There's some end of the worlders going on right now where Arizona's going to be a 3 and in the Midwest. It's all look. I know it's people get mad when I focus on other teams. There are 14 number 1 seeds that have lost in conference tournaments. Tennessee got blown out today. Baylor, and Iowa State. They're just going to be switching for the 2. Duke's already lost. They were a possible 2. Like, teams lose. And so the Arizona's locked in.
I don't understand. The worst teams in the Big 12 are better than the top teams in that their coaches know how to coach and make adjustments. But I don't really know how that necessarily impacts Arizona. It's kind of the same thing where we keep hearing people say, well, Houston wouldn't have lost this game. True.
And yet,
yeah.
But yet Houston has lost games.
But Houston's lost games. What did Houston get bounced in Sweet 16 last year?
I don't know. Houston's good. Like what? Like they're really good.
Right.
Are you saying Houston's better than Arizona? Sure.
Yes.
Throw in UConn too. I don't care.
Yeah, sure. I am not buying Tennessee, everybody. I am not buying Tennessee. I've been telling people this left and right. I will not buy Tennessee.
Do you think the Tennessee podcasts are saying the same things we are?
I'm sure they are.
Of course,
Doesn't matter.
Right, yeah.
Doesn't matter. Who cares? We lost. We're
Yeah.
great.
Yes, Houston is tough. We agree. All right, everybody out there, we're going to have a live selection show. Scheer, you don't know this, but what time is selection show?
Scheer will. No one knows this, but I believe they're doing an event again. I'm not positive.
They're doing an event?
Remember last year they did the event at Union?
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe they're going to announce that like tomorrow.
Okay. Well,
unless they cancel it.
Well, either way, you're going to be doing a live one or a live show with me for that. Okay.
No, but yes, I mean, yeah, we'll see.
No, he will be there. This is understood. All right. But all right, guys, on that note, though, we're still going to be a 2 seed, everybody. Scheer, combining everybody else's brackets, has said that we're going to be good. Everybody go back the A. Back the A. Anthony, can I get a back the A out of you?
No.
Jason will do it.
If Anthony won't do it, then I won't do it.
All right. Well, I'm going to say
Good call.
Ben One White, come back in here real quick. Ben One White.
Back the A.
Back the A, baby. That's what we need. Everybody out there, very much appreciate you guys listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'll be driving back tomorrow. We're going to have a live show Sunday. You are all the best. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
We all silly like the mayor.